We also have some footage to show of a protest taking place in Washington, D.C. tonight. We're getting this footage courtesy of Alex Gorbachev, who is a reporter with VOA's Russian service. Basically, what we're seeing right now is a protest that I believe has been going on for at least a couple hours. Joining us now is Alex himself, who is still live outside at the protest. Alex, we appreciate you giving us some time tonight. As we heard in the report, this is bringing renewed outrage toward the Russian president, who has suppressed opposition at home. In fact, a protest took place right outside the embassy where you are right now. I just want to know what their main message is, those protesters. What are they saying?
I spoke to protesters right before our live stream, and mostly people are outraged, as you said. People demand accountability. People demand justice. People demand answers. They want to know what really happens with Navalny in this prison, in this penal colony above the Arctic Circle. And when I say answers and that they demand answers, those protesters I spoke to, they don't really, none of them are talking about Navalny's death. They are talking about Navalny's murder. They don't believe that he died because he was a young man, 47 years old. And he demands justice. He demands accountability for people who incarcerated Navalny and for Vladimir Putin in particular.
What did Navalny do that made him such an important figure? I know you're out in the field right now, but right now the viewers are looking at a tweet from the head of the EU Commission saying, deeply disturbed and saddened by news of the death of Navalny. Putin fears nothing more than dissent from his own people, a grim reminder of what Putin and his regime are all about. Alex, I know you followed his history. Can you tell us a little bit about what makes him an important figure?
Following Navalny for more than 10 years. I first interviewed him, I think it was 2009 or 2010, so more than 10 years. And of course, I would never imagine that I would report on his death because, again, he was a young man. So he became popular in 2011, 2012. We had large protests, large rallies in Moscow and other Russian cities where hundreds of thousands of people gathered to protest the regime, to protest the election fraud. And Navalny was one of the leaders of such protests, along with Boris Nemtsov, politician who was murdered in 2015, right by the Kremlin, few steps away from the Kremlin. He also was very well known because of his investigations exposing corruption and extravagant wealth of Russian elite.
When we talk about right, and you know, let's talk a little bit. We're actually looking at videos of Navalny on our screen right now. We understand his death took place in a Russian prison. What is Russia saying right now about how Navalny died?
So we don't know. We do not know much. All we know is just a report from the Russian prison service. They indicated that he lost consciousness suddenly, and that they immediately called doctors who were trying to revive him, and then he just died. That's all we know so far. As for Russian propaganda and Russian state-run media, they didn't also come up with answers or with versions. They have contradicting versions. For example, that Western countries did that. They do not specify. They say just it's the West behind it. West killed him. Or another version, which is contradicting, that he died because of blood clots. And before this live stream, because I was covering Navalny for the whole day today on Navalny's death, and my colleagues, they spoke to doctors who were monitoring Navalny's health in last years, and they told that you're not coming out with diagnosis in like few minutes after the person died. And in his case, we may be able to get some answers after the forensic expertise. But again, the Russian government has the full custody over Navalny's body, so I don't know how accurate these results would be. So all we know for sure that Navalny is dead.
When we talk about these Arctic prisons. I mean, obviously, time may tell exactly what happened in this scenario with Navalny specifically, but what do you know about the conditions within these Arctic prisons?
They are known for very harsh conditions, Austin, and many analysts assume that Navalny was sent to the prison, to the penal colony above the Arctic Circle, just because it's so far, it's so remote, the climate there is so harsh, and also to restrict his communication with lawyers, to restrict his communication with family, and to restrict and deprive him of access to like any health care, to any medical care. Moreover, he had been imprisoned last 3 years, and over or around 300 days he spent in solitary confinement. And solitary confinement, it's even if you get there as a healthy person. So even healthy people, they died in Russian prisons because of harsh conditions. And Navalny's health, it was drastically deteriorated after he was poisoned in 2020. So with his health, which was deteriorating without access to medical help, and with like all of this psychological pressure, many analysts assume that, of course, it had dire consequences for his health, and he had a lot of complaints about like what's going on with his health. You can just check his picture, see his pictures before the incarceration and right now. In fact, you can see like him on video. I think it was just yesterday or the day before yesterday, where you can see how he looks, how he looked like a few days before his death.
When we talk about Navalny's death, what could this mean for the future of the anti-Kremlin movement within Russia? And what does it mean for democracy as a whole, Alex?
So far, people are frustrated and and very sad. And I actually asked precisely the same questions to activists with whom I spoke today during this protest. And no one really has answers right now, because what's going on in Russia in the last few years, was devastating. There were a lot of sanctions in place, but they don't seem to really work in terms of like regime change in Russia. And also, I was talking to people about their hopes and how they envision the future of Russia, and many indicate that even Navalny died, he will still be a symbol for them, a symbol of resilience, because after he was poisoned, he had an option to stay in Germany, but he decided to return to Russia, because he said he will not give Putin a pleasure to have him in exile. So he still decided to return back to Russia, because he was a firm believer that only change in Russia will be possible within the country, not when you're overseas. So for many people, even after his death, he is a symbol of struggle and resilience. And also what drives to people I spoke today, what drives activists, is they want to see justice for Alexei Navalny, and they want to see people who are responsible for what happened to him. They want to see. They want them to be accountable for what they had done to him.
I know that you said that you have interviewed Navalny before, Alex. What have you guys talked about?
I interviewed him like frequently. It wasn't in-depth interview because he was really hard to get access to. Very few journalists actually interviewed him. And the fun fact about it, so when I was talking about it today with my colleagues, he wasn't that excessive.
Billions of $500 billion annually in affordable long-term finance.
Did have an audio interruption there, Alex. Go ahead.
Yes, he wasn't that easy accessible by journalists, because he was, saying that, they would ask, why are you still alive if you're opposing Vladimir Putin's regime? So he didn't want to answer those questions. As for me, I was just asking him about Russian democratic movement, because he was one of the leaders of Russian democratic movements, and he had unique ability to attract younger audiences. In particular, he implemented a lot of like Western political technologies. He was interesting politicians for journalists to talk to. And also, of course, because of his anti-corruption investigations, because he exposed so many stories about wealth of Russian elite and about how corrupt Vladimir Putin is, and also former president of Russia, Vladimir Medvedev.
This is the last thing I want to touch on. This is coming just before the Russian presidential election, Alex. How close are we to the election?
Election in Russia is in March. It's very close. It's very close.
So we will be watching closely, obviously. We're not looking to see much competition in that election, obviously, but we will be keeping tabs on this story very closely. Alex Gorbachev joining us live from outside the Russian embassy, where he has been reporting for the VOA's Russian service today at that protest. Thank you for making time for us today, Alex. Take care.
Thanks for having me, Austin.